Hi everyone. So you decided to get a new DC power cable for the ICOM 705. This one in particular that I got at Ham Radio Outlet for about $37 is the ICOM IC OPC 2421. It's a less than 6 feet, probably around 5 feet. And one of the things that is way better than third-party cables is that it already comes with some fuses that are inside for positive and negative, and it has an elbow connection, which is great. But you need to decide how are you going to connect to the power source. I like using Anderson PowerPoles. And what I want to do is I want to show you, a couple of things that I do. Maybe some information that might be useful for you. Now, cool thing about the ICOM DC power cable is that they tell you which one's positive and which one's negative, usually, but not always. The one that has the stripe that goes along the positive. But the important thing is that they label it for you. Now I'm going to use Anderson PowerPoles. And one of the great things about Anderson PowerPoles, which are these things here, they're pretty standard in the amateur radio community. Now there are 3 types of connector contacts, these things right here. So there are 3 types of connections or connector contacts. One is 15, the other one for 15 amps, the other one's for 30 amps, and the last one is for 45 amps. 16 to 20 gauge for the 15 amps. 12 to 14 gauge for the 30 amps, which is the middle here. And then the last one, 45 amps, is for a 10 gauge. So choosing the right connection is useful. Cool thing about these 3 here is that you can use the same housing. All right, so reading the data on the wire, it says it's 18 gauge. So I'm going to use the 15 amp connectors. And so the 15 amp connectors, the slot is very small. And so when I put the wire, the housing of the wire will not be crimped. Sometimes I would like the wire housing to be crimped as well. But in this case, it won't work. And we'll find out. We'll test it after we crimp it. Now, these are the PowerPole crimping tool that I use from PowerRec. It's the Crimper. They're reliable, but they're not the least expensive version. Here, if I ratchet all the way, you can hear a click, and then it opens. So this one does 15, 30, and the 45 versions of the connector contacts. And then it has this stage here where it will hold the connector. And then the connector has like a tongue, and it's you can see it's curved, in that case up. So I'm going to slot the connector in here to the 15. There's a hole there that you can put it in. All right. As you can see, it holds it very nicely. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put and it doesn't matter which one you do first, positive or the negative. And I'll just slot it in there as best as I can. There we go. And then just gingerly start clicking on it. And you don't need crimpers to do this. You can use just a regular pliers. I just like the crimper because it does a lot of the mechanical work that I need. And I usually don't do the 15s. I usually do the 45s. And I'm doing it slowly so you can see what I'm doing. But usually you just do them pretty fast. 2 hands. Like, there you go. You can hear that click. And there it is. You can see it's really locked in. And I'm going to see if I can give it a tug. Yeah. And I'm not gingerly doing that. Yeah, it's there. Because what happens is sometimes when you try to pull it out, the wire won't hold very well, or the tube for the connector contact doesn't really crimp the wire, but it did. Again, sometimes when you slot it through, it goes all the way to this end right here. But the farther you go in, the more likely it's going to, the farther you go in with the wire, the more likely it's not a contact with the metal, or it will interfere when you put the housing. So I'd rather have it this way. But again, this is all different practice. Many different, you watch different videos on crimping, Anderson PowerPoles. Everybody has their own method. Okay, so I'm going to slot this one in here. So you can see the tongue is, curved that way, right? Let's see if we can see that. See the, I usually don't do it this way, but you can. But I usually don't. I usually slot it this way, so you can see. Just goes in there, and this is for the 15. And then again, I'll put the wire in here. Holding the wire, because if I just let it go and start crimping, it might come loose, the wire. So I just hold it there, and then just with a few clicks, it starts to hold. And then you'll see this little metal piece click or slap. There we go. And it's done. So try that. Pull it. I am really pulling it because, again, if I pull it out from whatever it is it's being connected to, I don't want these things to just slide out. Okay. So that's pretty good. That's holding very nicely. I'm really happy with that. A lot of the times you can put a boot if you want to. One of these boots, you just cut it here. You can do that. Let's see. You can do that. You can cut the boot here in the end, and then slide this here. And we're going to put the Anderson, the housing, we're going to put it on right now in a little bit. And then you can, put this up so they'll be nice and covered. But I usually don't do this for the radios, but for other things like my solar panel or other devices, I do put a cover on them. Because one of the disadvantages of putting one of these covers is that sometimes when you have a distribution block, the plastic seems to get in the way because it makes the housing much thicker. Okay. All right. So this is going to be a little challenging to see, but there is an orientation on these there's an A right here, a letter A, and then there's like a metal piece that's right there next to the A. And that metal piece just seems to like fold. And what's going to happen is these tongues, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to orient it a certain way. The A is upside down, by the way. It's not like this for the moment. And usually when you look at a lot of things, or a lot of these Anderson PowerPoles, they're like this, right? Where the A is upside down for whatever reason. But okay. Anyway, as you can see, there's this letter A that's right here, or this plastic piece, this base here. I'm gonna have it this way. So this is pointing at me down. The A that you'll see here is upside down. And then I have these tongues, right? They look like tongues to me, right? And so I'm gonna push them from the back over here as straight as I can. So it's gonna go as straight as I can, and then you're gonna feel a click. And what it's doing is this tongue, which is curved, right? When it's going through, and then when it's in there, it's gonna lock in. It's something like this, right? It's gonna go like this, and it's gonna click on the metal. This piece here is gonna lock it in. And this is the way to orient it, because this metal piece that's right here, that's where the tongue is going to lock it. Now, if you have it the other way, like this, it will go in there, but then it won't lock on the metal. You can always go online and look at the orientation of where that metal piece is. Okay, next thing that's very important is to understand, where's the positive and which is the negative. And I got very fortunate. Here's the positive, here's the negative. Red is positive, right? The orientation needs to be where, this is not best practice. This is how I learned how to do it. But the A, right, the A is pointing, it's upside down. We have the metal here on the bottom. So, and that's positive, right? Okay. So I'm going to get my positive right here, which is right there, positive. Gotta make sure that's the right one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide that one in. See that? Here's the A, the tongue, right? It's curved like that. Right? It's going to slide in, pop. So, and you got to make sure it's not crooked. It's, it needs to be pretty straight. And because this is very thin wire, sometimes it doesn't go in. So there's a ways to put it in. Almost there. Now, right there, it's sliding in, and it's really hard to tell right there with no light. It's not very bright in there, but you can push it a little bit more. And sometimes it doesn't work. So there's a tool that they give you to slide that in. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. There we go, it did work. Okay, it's very hard to see, but there's the tongue went over that ridge. Okay, but this is a PowerPole insertion, removal, and extraction tool. These are like $10. Don't pay no more than 10. You can probably even find them less. But anyway, okay. So in this case, right, again, this is the tongue. So yeah, just to tell you what I did over here. That's the tongue, right there. It's curved. So I took this, and there's some I guess edge. The edge is also tongued. And then I got the wire, and then just pressed it in straight as I can. Okay, but anyway, now you can see here that the wire doesn't seem to be oriented correctly, right? It looked like I was supposed to put it the other way, but no. What you can do is you can easily slide this one over to the other side, and it's not going to do any damage to the wire. Or because when I used to do this, I used to try to orient it right and twist it, and it's just, I mean, if you're doing like 20 or 30 of it, well, not that many, right? Maybe like 5 or 10 of them, you know, it's kind of like, can you not orient them first and then just do it? Yes, you can. But, you know, it's always good to, if you can, orient the wire right. But like I said before, see, if I do it this way, you can see that's why you might think, oh, I did a mistake. Well, no, you didn't. All you need to do is take the wire and then nicely put it on this side. And we double check, it says negative, and it's black. And then we just slide it in. Now, the sliding it in straight is the hard part. And you can see it got sort of stuck in there. And you can use this tool. I know it's really hard to see. And then you just try to squeeze it in. Okay, it did. And then when you do it, you'll hear a click, click. And then what happens is the tongue will go over this piece of metal and it'll get stuck in there. See that? That's not going anywhere. And again, if you had the cover, right, then you would slide the cover and then it would make it look nice. Like so. But I'm not going to do the cover. And, you know, don't tug it very hard, but tug it where you can see, okay, this is pretty secure. And one thing that I have, let me see, do I have it here? I used to have, oh no, I have it over here. This one is a Power Rec, call it a Test Buddy. It's an Anderson PowerPole LED polarity tester. It's not going to turn on, but the orientation of the poles are correct. So you can always test it so you can see it doesn't go that way, it goes this way. And it slides in very nicely. See that? So you should test it on something if you don't have it. If you use one of these without the wires, without the connectors, it doesn't really, you can't really do anything. You can feel it go in, but a lot of the times the wires, the tongues are not right, or there's excess wire on the connectors. Like I was telling you, sometimes the wire will go too far or near the tongue. If the wire goes more to the tongue of the connector, that will interfere with the connection. So when you finish with one of these, you should try it. And it does feel, you know, solid and secure. That's great. These connectors are cool because you can always put it on your, to test to see if something has power or not. Let me see. I'm right now beta testing my design for a solar generator right here. You can barely see it, but this one does have power right now. And it's orange for radio, but we'll talk about that later. But if I connect this, see, it gives you a nice green light telling you you have the correct polarity. But we're not testing the polarity. In this case, we're testing to see if it fits nicely. And it does. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this to the IC 705. Okay. And connect this into my solar generator. All right. I'll go over here. Okay. All right. And I'm going to turn it on. Wonderful. It works. Okay. All right, we got power now. And we can go on our way. Okay. So that is how we do the connections for the IC 705. If, for whatever reason, you need to strip the wire, you can always use strippers, right? This is a Klein tool. You can strip the wire that way, or you can use one of these automatic strippers. I really like these. These are pretty cool. If you make a mistake, you can strip the wire again and redo it. And, you know, a lot of the times watching one video on Anderson PowerPole is not enough. You might need to watch other videos as well. I hope this was useful information. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please recommend it to someone else. Please consider subscribing, and I hope you have a great day. This is Frank, Whiskey Charlie, 0 Oscar.